welcome back to the channel. Today, we continue following the tumultuous journey of single mom Hoài Ca and police officer Hùng, a love story once thought to have faded in the storm, now reigniting amid countless upheavals. In the previous episode, everything had only just begun. But in this episode, a serious incident suddenly befalls Hoài Ca, pushing all that was once peaceful to the edge. She faces danger, deep in a desolate forest, with no one around. Will Officer Hùng make it in time? Will love and the instincts of a man who once loved passionately drive him to cross the line of duty, to save the woman who once meant everything? Every detail in this episode matters, don't miss a single moment. Tension. Surprises. Deep emotions. A turning point is coming, and it may change everything between them forever. Since the day Tony, the chubby, quick-witted 2-year-old boy, arrived, the small riverside house of Mrs. Ha and her son seemed to be filled with a new breath of life. Gone were the breezy afternoons filled only with the sound of paddles hitting the riverbank, the quiet modest meals, now replaced by bursts of laughter, tiny footsteps running around, and the soft humming of a mother slowly rediscovering herself. After the horrifying incident in the forest, although Hoài Ca still hadn't regained her memory, the feeling of being loved, being protected, helped her live each day in peace. But peace was never meant to last. An old acquaintance appeared. Du, the man who once held a special place in Hoài Ca's life, came to that little village. He didn't arrive with arrogance or resentment, but with worry in his eyes, a gentle voice, and a desire to bring Hoài Ca and Tony back to the city, the place they once called home. You don't have to stay in this remote place, come back with me. I'll take care of you, and of Tony too. But all he received was a confused, slightly distant look from Hoài Ca. To her, Du was now nothing more than a stranger. No memory. No shared past. No familiar feeling strong enough to move her. She looked at Tony, the child who didn't cry when separated, who wasn't afraid of strangers, who simply nestled into her arms, as if instinctively knowing, this is my mother. Then she gently said, I'm sorry. I don't know who you are. I don't remember. But I'm not afraid here. I feel safe. Amid the silence, Mrs. Ha, old but perceptive, spoke up. She's still recovering. My son and I are taking good care of her. Tony has already settled in. I hope you understand. Du clenched his fists, trying to hide his emotions. He didn't argue anymore. Slowly, he opened his wallet, pulled out a stack of money, and said, I just want to help. At least let me bring a doctor. Her memory, it shouldn't be left like this for too long. But Hoài Ca shook her head. Not with anger. Not with gratitude. Just a calm, steady refusal. I believe, some things can't be rushed. If the memories are mine, they'll come back. If not, then I won't force myself to live in what's called the past. The air in the small house grew heavy. No one said another word. Only the wind rustling through the bamboo leaves remained, and Du's look of deep regret as he faced a version of Hoài Ca who no longer remembered him. Tony glanced up at Du, the stranger who wanted to take him away from his mother's arms. And Du could only bow his head and quietly walk away. Perhaps, not everyone has the right to bring someone back to where they once belonged. Especially when that place, in their heart, is no longer home. As for Hùng, his life had turned completely upside down. Once an outstanding police officer living in a comfortable home in the city, now all he had left were a few old suitcases, and a mountain of debt weighing on his shoulders. It all started with his mother, a woman who, on the surface, appeared to be a model elder. But behind closed doors, she was entangled in a web of crime and debt. When the truth unraveled, Hùng didn't just lose his trust in her, he lost his entire sense of home. He was forced to leave the very house that once offered both him and his mother a sense of peace, as it had become a target, constantly watched by loan sharks day and night. He made calls everywhere. Friends, colleagues, relatives, each received a plea. I just need a little, just enough to keep myself and the people involved safe. No one turned him down outright, but no one could really help either. At his lowest, a former classmate, someone he had once been close with during police academy, called back. "My family has an old house in the outskirts. It's been empty for years. If you don't mind, you can stay there for now." With no other option, Hung packed up what little he had left, or rather, what remained of his past, and left. The house stood in the middle of an open field, walls cracked, moss covering the front steps. But at the very least, it was quiet. There were no debt collectors lurking. And most importantly, it posed no danger to Hoài Ca. Because in Hung's heart, even though they had once been close, now, he could only protect her from a distance. He knew that if he returned to the small home where Mrs. Ha and her son were taking care of Hoài Ca, he would be bringing along unpredictable threats. The loan shark spared no one, and he was determined to make sure they never found out where she was. So Hung cleaned each dusty brick, repaired every broken door. Not because he planned to stay there long, but because he needed a space to think. To think of how to pay off the debt. To think of how to protect the woman he loved. And to wonder, was there any way to start over again? At night, in the damp old house where only the sound of wind howled through the cracks, Hung curled up in a threadbare blanket. But his mind remained wide awake. A man who had just lost his mother, lost his honor, and nearly lost the woman he loved. And now, he had lost even the place he once called home. Since the day Hoài Ca stayed at the home of Mrs. Ha and her son, life in that quiet countryside gradually became a new, warm rhythm for her. No noisy city streets, no shattered past, only crystal clear mornings, distant rooster calls, and long days wandering to the fields and the market. She slowly felt her heart at ease. And at some point, without realizing it, in Hoài Ca's gaze, one person was always there, Ha, the quiet, sincere young man who silently cared for her in every little way. The bond between them wasn't loud, nor spoken, but like an underground stream, quietly flowing. That day, after the rain had just stopped, Ha invited Hoài Ca to go into the mountains to pick bamboo shoots. It was a pristine forest, full of wild shoots, though the terrain was treacherous. They both knew it, but neither could turn down the chance to spend a day in the woods together. Because while the excuse was gathering shoots, in truth, both just wanted to be a little closer to one another. To pick more quickly, they split up, agreeing to meet again once their baskets were full. Ha headed toward the stream. Hoài Ca followed a narrow path leading up the hillside. But that was when disaster struck, quietly, without warning. Too focused on finding the best patches of shoots, Hoài Ca didn't notice the ground beneath her had weakened from the heavy rain the night before. She slipped. Her body tumbled down the steep slope. A dull, dry thud echoed, her head hit a tree trunk. And then, everything went black. Meanwhile, Ha, overjoyed with a basket full of bamboo shoots, returned to the meeting spot. He called out again and again, but no answer. Only birdsong and the sound of wind rustling through the trees replied. He assumed maybe Hoài Ca had finished first and gone home. So he hurried back, carrying his basket. But the moment the gate creaked open, his heart dropped. Hoài Ca's not back yet? He asked, voice trembling. His mother shook her head, eyes starting to show worry. From noon to afternoon, then dusk, still no sign of Hoài Ca. Without a second's delay, Ha grabbed a flashlight and rushed back into the forest, retracing the path they took that morning. He shouted until his voice went hoarse. He ran through every treacherous trail. Darkness fell. The mountain air grew colder. Leeches, mosquitoes, thorns surrounded him, but Ha didn't stop. He dug through bushes, scanned the base of every tree, and called out her name over and over. Hoài Ca, where are you? Please answer me. But the only reply was the rustling of leaves and the whisper of the night forest. One day passed. Then two. The whole village joined the search. But the forest was vast, and the people were few. Some began to say, maybe she was taken by wild animals. But Ha refused to believe it. He believed she was still alive. and he would find her. Each day, he barely ate, and headed back into the forest. Deep in the forest, as faint rays of light pierced through the canopy and touched her dirt-covered face, Hoài Ca suddenly opened her eyes. A sharp pain shot from her head down to her neck, forcing a soft groan from her lips. She sat up, her whole body aching, her head pounding like it was about to explode. But then, through the pain, something strange happened. Like a film playing in reverse. Fragments of memory came flooding back. Images of Mother Tony, then Hung, Du, the old house, the painful days, and the love she once had, all appeared vividly, clearly. She remembered everything. But before she could feel relief, a new fear surged through her. She looked around, only dense trees everywhere. The cries of birds and monkeys echoed in the distance. Not a single soul in sight. Hoài Ca was lost. Truly lost. The fall had flung her far from the path, so far that even with her memory back, she couldn't figure out how to return. Her survival instincts kicked in. She staggered to her feet and followed the sunlight downhill, searching for a stream. Cold sips of water soothed her throat, but her heart remained tight with fear. No one knew where she was. No one knew she had awakened. Still, she wouldn't let herself collapse. She began searching for wild roots, the kind Mother once taught her to eat while out in the fields. Forest cassava, bitter wild fruits, harsh on the tongue, but enough to keep her alive for another day. She made a makeshift shelter under a tree, covering herself with leaves to keep the forest mosquitoes away. And every morning, she continued. Searching for a way out. Searching for the path home. But the ancient forest was like a maze. Even though she was now alert, she kept circling the same slopes, passing tree trunks that felt familiar, yet she wasn't sure if she had already been there. Days turned into nights. Her body grew weaker. But in Hoài Ca's eyes, a fierce determination burned. I have to survive. I have to make it back. I have to see Hung again. And see Tony. 2 days after Hoài Ca went missing in the forest, a man quietly appeared at the edge of the village, his face gaunt, eyes dark and sunken after many sleepless nights. It was Hung. He had returned to search for Hoài Ca as if by instinct, even though he himself was still on the run from debt collectors, hiding in an abandoned house on the outskirts of town. But this time, the house of Mrs. Ha and her son was hauntingly silent. No sound of Tony's laughter. No sign of Hoài Ca at the porch like before. Only Mrs. Ha stood at the doorway, her hands trembling, voice choked. She went up the mountain to pick bamboo shoots with Ha the day before yesterday. And until now, there's been no word. Hung froze. He stood still for several seconds, as if unable to believe what he had just heard, then suddenly turned and bolted away without saying a word. He ran straight to the local police station. Standing in the courtyard, drenched in sweat, eyes burning with urgency. I want to report a missing person. She's my girlfriend. She lost her memory after an accident. If she's lost in that forest, she won't be able to find her way back. His voice was hoarse. His hands clenched so tightly they nearly crushed the report form. Without delay, Hung, the local police, and several villagers launched a search effort. Deep forest. Cloudy skies. Muddy, slippery trails. Only one clue, a bamboo basket left abandoned by the trail near the stream. Day 1, hopeless. Day 2, sudden downpours erased what little trace remained. Hung was nearly exhausted. But he didn't stop. At night, he huddled beneath the makeshift shelter built in the forest for the search team, his eyes wide open, ears straining for even the faintest sound. Is she still alive? Is she scared? Is anyone with her? And, does she remember me, even just once, in her most desperate moment? The worry tore through his mind. And on top of that, the phone kept ringing with relentless calls from debt collectors. Each vibration felt like a nightmare. But Hung gritted his teeth and gripped his flashlight tighter. Money can be repaid. Honor can be lost. But you are the one person I cannot lose. And so, at the first light of dawn on the third day, he put on his raincoat, packed a water bottle and a box of cold rice, and quietly stepped into the forest, once more. No one knew where he was going. But he knew exactly. I will find you, Hoài Ca. Even if this forest has to swallow me whole. And as for Hoài Ca, after many days lost deep in the forest, hungry, freezing, with only sheer will keeping her from collapsing, she finally found a small trail that led to a paved highway. When sunlight hit the asphalt, she thought she had made it out. But reality was harsh. Hoài Ca had no idea where she was. She remembered everything, her name, Tony, Mother Ha, even Officer Hung. But the one thing she couldn't recall was the exact address of Ha's home. She walked along the roadside, hoping to see a familiar face. But this land was completely unfamiliar. She had no idea how far she had strayed. No idea how to get back. The midday sun blazed overhead. Her stomach growled. Her feet were blistered and swollen. But still, she walked. Because she knew, she couldn't stop. By a stroke of luck, at the end of the village road, she came across a small roadside eatery. Without hesitation, she stepped forward, voice trembling. Please, could I wash dishes, clean up? I just need a little food. The shop owner, a kind-looking woman in her 40s, looked at her for a moment. Then gently nodded. Come in, child. Wash the dishes and then eat with me. If you're tired, you can rest in the back room. Not only was she fed and given a place to rest, but it was there, thanks to the kindness of strangers, that she learned the truth. She had wandered more than 50 kilometers away from the village she lived in. A distance that may not seem far, but to someone with no money, no transportation, no phone, it felt like 1,000 miles. The next morning, she gathered all the small wages she'd earned, still not enough to pay for a bus ride home. But then, fate smiled on her once more. A passing traveler, upon hearing her story, slipped a few small bills into her hand. Take this. It's not much, but enough to get you on a bus. And it didn't stop there. A street vendor and her young daughter, overhearing the conversation, volunteered to take her all the way to the district bus station. Go now, dear. Go home. Your loved ones must be worried sick. Hoài Ca was speechless with emotion. In the midst of exhaustion, thirst, and fatigue, kindness still bloomed. She boarded the bus. No luggage. No phone. No precise address. Only one thing in her heart, the burning desire to return. To see Tony, to see Mother Ha, and to see Hung. And that very desire was what led her back to the man searching for her through the vast mountains and forests. And so, after 3 days of crossing forests and streams, lost among the mountains and within her own soul, Hoài Ca finally returned. That afternoon, as the last rays of sunlight touched the old, weather-worn porch of Mrs. Ha's humble home, the old woman was busy splitting firewood, her eyes constantly glancing toward the gate, clinging to hope in the midst of hopelessness. For 3 days straight, she, Ha, and many villagers had searched high and low. Each time they returned empty-handed, she would sit silently on the doorstep, whispering a prayer. Please, heavens above, don't let anything happen to the girl. And then, the faint sound of footsteps echoed at the end of the lane. The soft shuffle of sandals, unsteady, trembling, but firm. Mother Ha looked up. Her heart nearly stopped. It was Hoài Ca. Thinner. Worn. Her eyes red from dust and wind. But safe. Alive. And, with a gentle smile returning to her lips. She had remembered everything. Mrs. Ha rushed forward and wrapped her in a tearful embrace. Oh, thank God, you came back, you remember now, don't you? Oh, thank heaven. The emotional moment had barely settled when the roar of a motorbike pierced the air outside. Hùng, his face radiant, eyes still swollen, burst through the gate. Upon hearing the news from Mrs. Ha's call, he hadn't even changed clothes, hadn't rested, he just ran. He had to see her. Now. Immediately. And when the door opened, his eyes met hers. No words were needed. They rushed into each other's arms. Hùng choked back a sob. I thought I'd lost you. I thought this time, you were really gone. Hoài Ca smiled through her tears. I may have gone far, but my memory and my heart found their way back, exactly where they belong. They held each other for a long time, as if trying to hold on to everything that had nearly slipped away. Tony came running from inside, throwing himself into his mother's embrace. For adults, Mrs. Hùng, and Hoài Ca, and one small child, gathered around the dinner table. Just a bowl of vegetable soup, a few pieces of braised fish, and plain white rice, but warmer than any grand feast. No one spoke much. Because true happiness sometimes only needs a meal with everyone present, a quiet laugh, and the comforting truth that the ones you love are still here. Together. Though Hoài Ca had regained her memory after the near-death ordeal in the forest, she still had no idea that the person who once pushed her to the brink of death was none other than Hung's mother, the man she once loved deeply, the same man who had risked everything, even his honor, to search for her in a hopeless wilderness. The day of reunion, seemingly complete, still had a bitter truth lurking in the shadows. When Hoài Ca learns the full secret, that it was Hung's own mother who had a hand in orchestrating the events that led her into danger, will her heart be strong enough to forgive? As for Hung, he's been silently bearing the burden of his mother's debts, drowning each day under the weight of it all. A son of a criminal. A police officer, sworn to uphold justice. And one day, he will have to face the moment when his own mother is handcuffed and brought before the court. Between justice and family, between love and an unnamed torment. What choices will Hung and Hoài Ca make? Is love strong enough to survive such a cruel truth? Will justice be the very thing that tears them apart once again? The next chapter of their story holds more twists. Painful. Heart-wrenching. But also filled with hope. Stay tuned for the next episode. When the truth comes to light, will the heart still have room to forgive?
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa mọi người đến với câu chuyện tình yêu của mẹ đơn thân Lý Hoài Ca và cảnh sát Hùng nha mọi người. Như ở trong tập này mọi người cũng có thể thấy là trong quá trình bị mất trí nhớ và đi lên rừng kiếm măng cùng với anh Hà là người đã cứu Hoài Ca, thì Hoài Ca đã vô tình bị lạc và bị thương dẫn tới đầu cô bị va chạm, nhưng mà cũng chính nhờ lần va đập này thì đã khiến cho Hoài Ca hồi phục được trí nhớ. Nhưng mà Hoài Ca lại dẫn đến một tình trạng là cô bị đi lạc và không thể tìm thấy được đường về. Hà cũng như mẹ Hà cùng với cả Hùng và một số người dân đã đi tìm rất là nhiều, nhưng mà do Hoài Ca đã mất phương hướng nên là cô đã đi sang một khu vực khác. Đến khi mà cô đi xa đến tận 5-70 km thì cô đã hỏi thăm và đã bắt xe về nhà. Vậy thì liệu khi mà Hoài Ca biết mẹ Hùng là người gây ra những khó khăn cho mình thì sẽ phản ứng như thế nào? Thì mời mọi người đón xem tập sau nhé.